Okay, so for our 1 point perspective, which we're going to do together as a class, we are going to need a pencil. I'm using my HB pencil because it's kind of the middle of the road pencil. You're going to definitely need a ruler and an eraser. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw our horizon line. The horizon line for this activity, you can usually draw it wherever you want on the page, but for this we're going to draw it in the middle-ish so that we can experiment with drawing shapes above, below, and on the horizon line. We're also going to draw our vanishing point in the middle. Again, you can, once you get comfortable with it, place your vanishing point wherever you want on the horizon line. But for the purpose of this, it's going to be in the middle. The vanishing point is essentially where all lines leading to tend to vanish. So the first thing we're going to do is draw our first shape. So I'm going to draw just a square or rectangle using my ruler. I'm drawing light so that I can erase. So I have my shape below the horizon line. And then I'm going to match up my lines all the way to the vanishing point, and I'm going to lightly draw because we're going to be erasing. And I'm going to make sure that the vanishing point goes to all corners of my square. Again, I do really light so that I can erase. So now we can see how this square would look in space. So I would then decide how long do I want it. You don't want to usually leave these what we call orthogonal lines, the lines that vanish towards the vanishing point. So for example, if this was a building, I might end it here. So basically in 1 point perspective, all lines are either horizontal, vertical, or those orthogonal lines that lead to the vanishing point. So I've got my horizontal, vertical, and then I can go in and erase and decide, okay, now I'm going to go and erase these lines that lead to the vanishing point. And maybe you want this to be more of a cube, so you also erase the lines in here. So I could then make that into a building or whatever I wanted to make it. Now let's practice doing one on the horizon line. So again, I'm doing a rectangle or a square, starting with my shape. And this is just kind of our practice, our sketch, so it doesn't have to be super perfect. Okay, and now I am again drawing my 4 corners to that vanishing point. Really make sure you're on that vanishing point. Lightly drawing so that I can erase. And then again deciding maybe I want this one to be a little longer, go back into space. So I'm drawing my vertical line, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to erase those orthogonal lines. I can always redraw the horizon line that I've erased. But you want to imagine you're building what you want it to look like, or I'm saying building, but really could be anything. Let's just redraw that horizon line there. So then I've got one. So notice how anything below the horizon line is going to look like, and I'm going to write below equals looking from above. On horizon line equals looking at. Look how I'm looking at it straight on, so I can't see above or below. Now you can imagine that looking at something above the horizon line, it's going to put the perspective of the viewer as below. So again, I have my my rectangle. And always, always use your ruler. It's very important that you use your ruler when you're dealing with perspective. You might get comfortable enough with this where you only really have to draw those 3 lines. So I already know I don't want the inside showing, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut off my shape here, and then cut off my shape here. Now let's say I did want the inside showing. So again, you can imagine that this is looking from below. And that's above the horizon line. Okay, so you can see those differences. One thing you can begin to think about is light. So if the light was coming from a certain direction, then you could imagine what would be the darkest side, the lightest side, etc. So for example, if the lightest side is gonna be, for example, on top, then I would leave that one. If the darkest side were gonna be on the left side, then I might begin to add my value to the darkest side. So that would mean my light source is coming kind of from above and to the right. And you can also use your tortillon to blend in the values. So this is going to become more like a form. So I've got my darkest value, the lightest value on the top, and then I'm going to have a middle range value. So I'm going to draw a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to use my tortillon to blend. So then I might do the same here. If these are all in the same light source, again, this would be my middle value. My darkest value would be on the other side. This might be a pretty light value, so even lighter than this. Using my tortillon to blend. You can go in and get a finer eraser to erase some of those other details to clean up any sort of craftsmanship. Again, my darkest value is coming over here because my light is coming from the right. But even darker than this value might be where there's no light coming. So I'm going to press down even more here. So you're imagining that light source. Now, this is darker, but I'm going to just lighten this up a little bit so there's a little more contrast there. Okay. Again, using my tortillon to blend. And then this would be my kind of middle range value. I'm going to darken this a bit too to make it more even with the other one. So you can kind of create this illusion of space, this environment where all of these shapes or buildings or whatever you want to make them have similar perspective and similar light sources. So you're thinking about value, you're creating three-dimensionality, you're creating form. Again, don't draw too dark, otherwise it's going to be hard to